Hello, everyone. Welcome to the University of Maine Cooperative Extension's Gifts from the Kitchen webinar. I'm Lisa Fishman, and I want to thank you for joining us for our last webinar of 2021. These nutrition and food preservation webinars deliver current research-based recommendations for healthy cooking using some of the great produce from Maine farmers, tips for shopping local, and great food projects that will keep you busy and engaged this winter. You can review recordings of past webinars on our webinar resource page, which we will link to in an email following today's session. We're going to be joined today by my UMaine food team colleagues, Kate McCarty, Vina Lindley, and Lori Bowen. The mission of the University of Maine Cooperative Extension is to help Maine people improve their lives through an educational process that uses research-based knowledge focused on issues and needs. Our educational programs include agriculture, horticulture, including master gardeners, 4-H youth development, food safety, and nutrition. And finally, we want to let you know that the University of Maine is prohibited from discriminating on the basis of race, color, national origin, sex, age, disability, and reprisal or retaliation for prior civil rights activity. Today, we'll focus on making gifts from the kitchen. We'll cover how to prepare several edible gifts for the holidays and any food safety concerns around giving and receiving food. Some housekeeping. We have our webinar set up so that you can hear and see us, but we can't hear or see you. But we do want to answer your questions, so please ask them as they come up for you during our presentation by using the Q&A feature, which is located at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Thanks again for joining us. Now, let's get started. Homemade food gifts can be a nice way to show your love for your friends and family. We're going to show you how to make several different homemade gifts that are relatively inexpensive, ship well, and make delicious and even healthy recipes for the gift recipient. We'll also make sure you're aware of any food safety risks so that your gifts are safe, in addition to being delicious. You'll love these homemade gifts from the kitchen as they help you stay connected to loved ones near and far this holiday season. Before we dive in, let's begin with a little poll. We want to know, how did you hear about this webinar today? Was it an email from Extension? Was it Facebook, from a friend, a newspaper or TV, or some other source? And we'll give folks just a few more minutes to complete our little survey. Just about done. And we'll finish in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And we see that it's almost neck and neck, that between an email from Cooperative Extension letting you know about this webinar today and through Facebook, the majority of you have found your information from these two sources. So we welcome having you on board today. We have some newspaper, and we have a couple of folks that indicated there were other sources of finding out this information. Wonderful. We like to know that the avenues that we're using to advertise our programs are working. So we thank you for sharing your avenues of getting information with us today. So we're going to jump right into a food demonstration, and we're going to go see Kate in the kitchen, who's going to kick us off with our first recipe.
Hello, I'm trying to be here. All right, hi everyone. So I'm going to show you how to make a really simple cranberry mostarda. So Vina actually found this recipe. It is from Ball, and we'll be sharing it with you in an email that we send out after the webinar. I love this recipe because it uses fresh or frozen cranberries. Right now in Maine, cranberries are in season. And so if you want to pick up some fresh cranberries, you can use those. If you're like me and still have some in the freezer from last year, you can use those up to make way for another stash for other projects in the future. So I used 2 bags of frozen cranberries, and then the other ingredients are quite simple, not a lot of prep ahead of time, which is another added plus. So red wine, mustard seeds, the cranberries, sugar, red wine vinegar, salt. I just had to chop up a red onion, some Dijon mustard, and some black pepper. So all together, these create a nice tangy condiment. Mostarda is like a fruit mustard. So you can see we've got the cranberry, we've got the mustard seeds, the Dijon mustard. So it's a nice little addition to roast meats. Of course, we've got Thanksgiving coming up. So this would be an alternative to your cranberry sauce, either instead of or alongside, since I know holiday traditions and menus are not often to be messed with. Also just makes for a really great and simple holiday gift. So I made it up ahead of time. You just boil the ingredients together. Cranberries are so great to work with because they burst really easily and thicken up nicely. And unlike some other kind of gelled products, you don't have to worry about the pectin, adding it or making sure you have enough of it naturally. So cranberries are where it's at as a beginner product. This Mostarda is very easily accessible. So I've got it all boiling here in the pot. And what I'm going to demonstrate for you is the canning of it. So filling up my jars and putting them back into the canner. If you are a first-time canner, we have lots of webinars on how to can using the boiling water bath canner that you can review. Again, I'll be sending out the email later this afternoon that will link back to all of our 2020, 2021 webinar recordings. So if you want to take on canning for some holiday gifts, we've got your resources. So I've got my boiling water bath canner with the jars in it. I washed them up, put them in there on the rack, brought the whole thing to a boil. So now it's simmering along, and I'm just going to take a few jars out at a time and put them on this rack here to protect them from the relatively cold linoleum counter. If you have stone or metal in your home, that's more of a concern, but just put them on something so the hot glass doesn't break when it hits the countertop. So I'll take out let's do 3 at a time. And I'm switched to the little 4-ounce jars. These are like the tiny little jelly jars, the smallest jar size that Ball makes. This recipe in the cookbook says use an 8-ounce jar. But for gifts, I like to just give smaller sizes so that people can kind of use it up all at once. It's not a burden. It won't go to waste, if it's something maybe slightly out there and you're not sure if your gift recipients will love it or not. So, and bonus, you get twice as many jars, same amount of food, but you just put it in a smaller jar and you get more jars. So you've got more gifts to give away. So I've got my canning funnel. Oops, sorry, I'm off camera. Let me readjust for you. Here we go. I'm left-handed, so that's why I'm erring on the left side of this cooling rack, but you can see now the cranberry mustard. It's nice and thick. You can see the mustard seeds, all the cranberries are split. Got a really tart flavor. I was taste testing it before the webinar, and my coworker said, we're not sure your face is a good way of knowing whether we should recommend it or not. I think it would be very good on something. I just ate it with a spoon and it was a little intense. So around the holidays, you might have some people over that you didn't expect, some impromptu gatherings. This would be great with like goat cheese or cream cheese as a appetizer, or spread it on your sandwiches with some mayonnaise. And lots of ways you can use these kind of offbeat condiments. So I'm filling just 3 jars at a time so that my mustard, so that my jars don't cool down. So if I had all 8 jars out, they'd be cooling down. And I'm just going to do 3 at a time and put them back in the canner. This is a nice cooked product, so it's okay if some jars are in there longer than others. And I'm doing a 1/4 inch of headspace. So this is my headspace measuring tool. It's got 1/4 inch steps on the edges of it. I rest the first one up from the bottom, and that measures 1/4 of an inch. So that needs to be level with the top of my mustard here. So come along and make your adjustments. And I do need to make sure to get all the air bubbles out. So this is a pretty thick product. Like I said, all those cranberries have thickened this up nicely. So got quite a bit of trapped air in the jar, and you want to make sure you just work that out as best you can. So make sure it's filled in. and then measure the headspace. Okay. And this is what helps that vacuum seal form. So you want to be pretty precise around the headspace. If you're like, I don't have one of those headspace measuring tools, we're going to send you an evaluation. And after you complete our program evaluation, you'll get a form where, as an incentive for thanking you for filling out the program evaluation, we'll send you one of these in the mail. So you just want a headspace measuring tool. They're also good stocking stuffers. If you don't need one, but want to give one to a friend. Okay, so I'm happy with my headspace on these 3 jars here. These messy things aside. So now we're just going to apply the lids, the 2-piece lid that's special for canning. I'm sure some of you will want to know where you can find these this time of year, especially due to COVID and supply chain interruptions. Canning lids and jars have been difficult to find. So unfortunately, I don't have a go-to answer for you. All the regular places where you find canning jars. We have been hearing from some of our master food preserver volunteers that they're well stocked in areas that have Amish populations. So maybe think about like a health food store or craft store, kind of off the beaten path place that might carry canning jars. All right, so 1 lid per jar. Once you're happy with that nice clean rim there. And these screw bands go on until they're fingertip tight. So just using the strength of your fingers to tighten those down. And then you can lift the jars back into the canner using your jar lifting tongs here. So they're fully submerged in this, well, it will be boiling water, it's just simmering water right now in the canner. And then this cranberry mustard recipe gets canned for 15 minutes. So I'm going to repeat filling these jars until all the cranberry mustard is gone and in my 8 canning jars. And then I'll turn the heat up on the canner, bring the water back to a boil, start my 15-minute timer. And then voila, my mustard will be canned. I'll let it cool fully and then label and date it and give it out as gifts around the holidays. So we're going to go back to Lisa while I finish this demo and get set up for another one. And she's going to share with you some more food safety guidance around gift giving.
I am. Thank you, Kate. So let's talk about the elephant in the room. And that is it safe to give homemade food gifts to others during the COVID pandemic? Well, the CDC, the FDA, and the USDA are not aware of any reports at this time that suggest that COVID-19 can be transmitted from food or food packaging. So your concern about homemade food gifts is more about ensuring proper food handling during the making and giving in order to avoid spoilage and foodborne illness. So to help you out, we have some tips. In terms of general kitchen food safety, remember that your food should be handled during the holidays as you would any other time, which means following good hygiene, hand washing, and food safety practices when you're handling food. So purchase your food only from reputable food sources. Be sure to cook your food thoroughly, and you can always make sure by using a food thermometer. Use good personal hygiene and start with a cleaned and sanitized workspace, and make sure all of the equipment in your kitchen has been thoroughly cleaned and sanitized as well. Remember, we don't want to be eating that raw cookie dough. Flour and eggs are raw products, and they need to be cooked prior to eating. Make sure to use only food-grade containers. Give people advance notice that you will be dropping off a gift and the location that you will be placing that gift outside so they can be on the lookout for it. If you receive food that you know should be refrigerated and it doesn't feel cold to the touch when you receive it, our recommendation is to not eat that food for safety's sake. If any foods you receive are leaking, don't consume them. And the old adage really still does ring true. When in doubt, throw it out. We've included our University of Maine Cooperative Extension publication to our resources list if you need information on shipping meats, such as ham, sausages, or turkeys. Remember that these foods need to be kept frozen or refrigerated during shipping. Also remember that hard cheeses, sweets, fruitcakes, jams, or jellies ship very well, and they do not need any temperature control. But a word of caution, be aware of your carrier's shipping restrictions for the volume of liquids that can be shipped and other restrictions. Plan ahead and allow plenty of lead time for the busy holiday shipping season. One final tip, whether you're sending or personally delivering your goodies, the best recommendation is to let the recipient know to look out for a package that will need attention. We're going to go back into the kitchen now with Kate because she is ready to demonstrate another gift from the kitchen. Kate.
Great, thank you. So I'm going to show you what is it called? Oatmeal raisin spice cookie mix. I knew it was a cookie mix, but got to get all my adjectives in there. That is a recipe featured in our Gifts from the Kitchen publication. So this is, again, something we're going to send to you after the webinar, and it's two parts. So it's got these nice 8.5 by 11 sized recipe cards. Those are for you to follow when you're making these mixes. So this is the cookie mix. And then the other files are little gift tags. So you're going to make the dry ingredient mix, and then you're going to give it to your friends or family with this little tag attached that then tells them how to make the cookies out of the mix. So this is a crucial part to include as well. So I'm going to demonstrate the oatmeal raisin spice cookie mix. Other options we have soup mix, muffin mix, peach crisp in a mug, on and on, lots of good stuff. So there's 12 recipes included that are all kind of a dry mix that then will give your loved ones a fun baking project during the wintertime. So to begin, I've got my wide mouth quart size jar, and Lisa kind of mentioned, or we've been mentioning that canning jars might be hard to find. This might feel kind of like a precious resource to give away in a project that isn't actually canned. And so this is the jar that's mentioned in the recipe just for the size of it, but you can use any kind of food grade container here that's appropriately sized. So it doesn't have to be a canning jar. And you simply layer in the mixes or the dry ingredients. I've got them pre-measured here. So we start with the brown sugar, 3/4 cup. And I'll admit, even though it has a lot of overlaps with canning, baking is not always my strong suit. You really need to be kind of meticulous. And so someone who really likes to have things turn out nicely will enjoy this part where you can pack these layers in, and that's what's going to give you that nice like look from the side with all the ingredients kind of layered real crisply. This part I'm like a little not as meticulous about, but if this appeals to you, you can spend your time making this layer of sugar flat, and then you repeat with the white sugar. So it's about 1.25 cups total. It's 1.25 cup total sugar. It's got brown sugar and white sugar. I don't want to tilt it too much to ruin my layers, but you can see you've got some nice layering action going on there. I don't know if it's going to be Pinterest worthy, we'll see. And then next up, the dried fruit. So I'm using golden raisins. You can use raisins or cranberries. We've got a real inadvertent cranberry theme going here, which I love. There's a lot, several other cranberry recipes in this resource, Gifts from the Kitchen as well. So pack in the raisins. Oh, I've also got this smaller, this is a 16-ounce jar for packing in the layers. I thought that would fit nicely in there, and it does. Use that to tamp down that layer of raisins. And then 2 cups of quick oats. These are oatmeal raisin cookies after all. Oh my gosh, you guys, it doesn't fit. I don't know what to tell you. This is truthfully the first time I've made this particular recipe. I'm so embarrassed that it's not all gonna fit. We've got a dry ingredient mix that is gonna be way too much as well. So aren't you glad I tested this recipe for you? Now you know it's more than a quart of dry ingredients or of ingredients total. Oh well, you'll live and you'll learn. All right, learn from my mistakes and get a bigger jar. All right, well, I did my best to try and get all those in there. I don't think any amount of tamping would have made it fit too. So like I said, lesson learned. But we'll proceed as though it all fit. Put the lid on. I am using a canning jar lid, but you can use, if you're not using a canning jar, and whatever lid it comes with, or they have these plastic storage lids you can use as well. So here's my cookie mix that wouldn't quite turn out right for the batch of cookies because it doesn't have the right amount of dry ingredients. You could put the rest in a little baggie and include it and say, love from your friend Kate, who's not that good at baking. But here you go. And don't forget the cookie mix instruction card. So the other ones that I made ahead of time, so I know these fit in a jar, are the minestrone soup mix. So this has got rice, split peas, 2 kinds of beans, and then pasta and a spice mix in little baggies on the top. That's just to keep them separate so that, you know, if you cook the pasta for the same amount of time you cook dried beans, your pasta would be very overcooked. So keep those separate. Again, the instructions will tell your loved ones how to make the soup, what added ingredients they need. And then the other one I made ahead of time was the crisp topping in a jar. So this one's fun. It just tells you then how to make an apple crisp. And then this is the topping that they spread on top. Add a little butter, bake it. I say apple crisp because those are in season, but you could use any kind of fruit you might have on hand. But the apple crisp instructions come with it. So that's when you can get creative and decorate these jars as you see fit. And do note that some of these, they all tell you how to both store them and for how long, what the shelf life is. Some of them are required to be refrigerated. So the granola, some of the other recipes have you adding butter. So just thoroughly read the recipe and make sure that if you're making one that requires refrigeration, that both you refrigerate it before you gift it and that you tell the recipient that they need to keep it in the fridge until they use it as well. All right, I think that's all I got. Oh, I do want to actually mention, Lori noted that some of these little, some of the recipes that we include also are great for this time of year when the canning jars might be, are scarce. And so some of these, like the seasoned coating mix for meat, poultry, and fish, as well as the salt-free seasoning mix, and even the granola, are small recipes. And so they can fit in whatever size container or bag that you might find. And then they are great for avoiding using jars, tucking into something that you're already giving, like a gift bag or something. All right, that's it for this demo. I'll see you in another minute. We're back to Lisa.
We are back to Lisa, but Lisa is going to actually jump it over to Lori because we've noticed that there are some questions in the Q&A box that are around that beautiful cranberry moutarda. So we're going to actually let Lori ask those questions to you, Kate.
Okay, so the first one, Debbie was wondering if there's an alternative for the red wine.
I was, yesterday I was brainstorming around that because I was like, guarantee you someone's going to want to avoid the wine. So the wine is an acidic ingredient. And so you would want to substitute in something that was also acidic. So I thought the best substitution would be just straight red wine vinegar. So the recipe already calls for red wine vinegar. So you would keep that and then add in the additional 3/4 cups instead of the red wine. So just use all red wine vinegar. Make sure you're adding those two totals to get the right amount. And I'm not sure what that would do to the flavor, but what you can do is taste the mustard. And if you think it's a little too tangy because of the increased amount of vinegar, because I think maybe vinegar and wine are going to have a little bit different flavor profiles, you could add more sugar. So the sugar is just there for flavor, so it can be added to taste. So if you want to taste the mustard, see if it needs, I mean, that's the same for if it needs a little more salt or pepper or sugar as well. So taste it before you can it up.
Yeah, you could really customize that to your personal taste that way. Alice was wondering, would you use that to say glaze a ham?
That's a great idea. Yeah, that goes really well, of course, with the cranberry mustard and ham.
Getting hungry.
I know. Suggestion in the book is to do a pork loin. I think to serve it with it, but I like the idea of glazing it. So you might like dilute it a little because it's very thick. And I'd be afraid it would burn. So maybe dilute it a little with water or stock or something to make it into a glaze.
It did look very thick on camera, yeah. So someone else was wondering, you had said to boil the cranberry sauce for 15 minutes. Is there another indicator to tell us that the jar is finished and can be pulled out of the water?
So, right, the cranberry sauce, once you put it in jars and put it in the canner, it's canned for 15 minutes. So as long as you maintain a full rolling boil throughout those 15 minutes, really the indicator is the time. So ensure a boil throughout that entire period. And then once 15 minutes is up, you could take them out.
Would you still do 5 minutes after you stop the heat and like that? Would you let them sit?
So there would be an additional 5-minute period. So this is a canning practice across the board. That's not unique to the mustard. After the processing time or the canning time in which you boil the food in the jars, you turn the heat off, take the lid off, and let the jar sit in the canner for an additional 5 minutes. And this helps to prevent siphoning and to kind of ease the transition between the really hot canning environment and the relatively cool room temperature.
Now we'll switch gears and go back to the cookie recipe. Lauren was wondering, is the brown sugar packed before going into the canning jar?
Yes, so it's 3/4 cup packed brown sugar. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, that's all I've got for questions just now, but I'm sure we'll have some more. So everyone go ahead and put your questions into the Q&A and we'll get back to them.
Thanks.
Excellent. Thank you both. So we are going to talk, Kate mentioned a little bit about dolling up your jars for the gift giving moment. So decorating the homemade gifts doesn't have to be very costly and it can be really fun. And you can easily find any number of decorative items in your craft room. You can go to department stores, but keep your eye out for the thrift stores and yard sales. Look for different assortments of fabrics and ribbons, little bells or beads or other little suitable bling for your jars or your containers. For inspiration from nature, just head outside and gather up some pine cones. We haven't had any noticeable snow here in the state of Maine yet. So all of these treasures are usually in the trees or on the ground, just waiting to be found. Cutting sprigs of evergreens, winter berries, or herbs that might not have yet succumbed to any frost. Cinnamon sticks make for a very fragrant decoration. If you're making cookie mixes, like Kate just showed you that oatmeal raisin cookie recipe, go ahead and add a cookie cutter to that recipe, to that jar. You can find usually a great assortment of cookie cutters. You can get them for pretty low prices, and you can just tie those with a raffia bow or some colorful yarn or jute string, and that makes your gift look really cute, and it's a very thoughtful addition to your gift. You may have found that canning jars of any size are difficult to find, as Kate mentioned, but don't fear. A lot of the baking mixes that we'll be sharing with you don't actually require canning jars. So, and also the canning jars can be very heavy to mail. So if you're looking for an alternative to that, you can use different types of jars, or you can use some food grade plastic containers with lids. You can use colorful holiday themed decorative bags. You can use some of those old fashioned wire bale jars with the glass dome lids, as in this picture here. As long as the material is food grade, that means that the product was always intended to hold food, then you can go ahead and use these types of materials. Lastly, get as creative as you want with your packaging. So here you have a pot holder that's been stuffed with a mix, and there's some little utensils that have been added to it. You can doll up a soup ladle with the soup mix, and it's a little difficult to see in the photo on the right, but that is a soup ladle with the minestrone mix soup that's down inside the ladle, the bowl of the ladle, and again, fancied up with some raffia tied at the top. You can use any number of things. I've seen soup mixes that have been tucked inside a whisk. So the whole bag of ingredients is tucked down inside the tines of the whisk, and the whisk holds it all together. Whatever way you choose to package your gifts, just make sure that you label the product clearly with the name of the item, and don't forget to attach the preparation instructions. If she's ready, we are going to pop back in to visit Kate in the kitchen, who's going to tell us a little bit about giving and receiving canned goods during the holiday season.
Great, thank you. I am ready. I'm still just canning mustard, but I can do both theoretically. So I was just want to use this section to tell you other things that I have either given or think would make for nice gifts that are canned recipes. So first, it is important to use a trusted recipe from a source that is research-based and designed for canning. So we'll of course send you resources that we recommend. Those are USDA-based research from cooperative extensions or the USDA itself, as well as Ball. So I think both of those entities do a good job of creating recipes that are kind of jazzy for the holidays. So, you're probably not just going to be gifting somebody like canned carrots or something. You're going to want something a little fun like this cranberry mostarda. So Ball, I think, is kind of trying to make their wheelhouse the more fun recipes. But that said, you can also find plenty from USDA, in particular, the National Center for Home Food Preservation out of Georgia's extension. So we'll send you those resources. And then as far as incorporating local foods, there's plenty around still, like cranberries. Sorry. Okay. Like cranberries are a fruit that's available now, but you can also really easily use frozen Maine blueberries. So a really simple gift recipe would just be to make a Maine blueberry jam, and then you can jazz it up a little by adding some cinnamon or nutmeg, because the addition of spices to jams, to all canning products really, doesn't affect the safety. You can also, there's a great apple pie jam recipe that could use local apples. I like chutneys because chutneys are kind of a little bit different. People might not have had them. It's like the fruit mostarda, where it's like a pickled fruit mixture, and it's great as a condiment or mixing with dairy or non-dairy creamy things to make dips. So I've got an apple chutney as well as a cranberry chutney. If you could find it or froze it previously, there's a rhubarb chutney recipe as well. So we'll send you those. And they're in the 8-ounce jar, but again, you could just scale down and put them in the 4-ounce jar for nice for gift giving. Beets are also local, so you can make pickled beets or a pickled beet relish. That's really a labor of love. So if anyone is a canner, they know how much work making pickled beets are. So that would be a very precious gift. Other jars that I brought in that I thought would be good to give as gift from my personal pantry is this pickled cauliflower with red peppers. This was a recipe from Ball. And so this is kind of like a sweet pickle. I think we added a little bit of curry, which again, you can do safely. Add in those dried spice powders just to make it a curry cauliflower pickle. Be a nice gift. Triple berry jam. Someone's probably gonna wanna know what the berries are, huh? So strawberry, raspberry, and blackberry. This is a recipe from Sure Gel, the pectin. And you can find all those frozen, either ones you did locally earlier this year or just store-bought, and make a nice triple berry jam. It's a classic and delicious. And then the last one I brought in to show was this strawberry lemonade concentrate. So this is a recipe also from Ball, and it uses frozen strawberries, fresh squeezed lemon juice, sugar, and water. And then you, I want to say, dilute 3 to 1. So 3 pints of water to 1 pint of this strawberry lemonade concentrate. And I canned this with frozen strawberries back in March. And then let me tell you, when it's not local strawberry season and you crack this open and make a strawberry lemonade when there's snow on the ground outside, there's nothing better to cheer you up, unless you're a snow person. And then you can just enjoy the snow and your strawberry lemonade. All right, so as far as, oh, and one last thing. We had the idea also to include kind of our ideas from our drinks from the garden webinar from the springtime. We'll send you the resources and the recording for that. So you could make flavored simple syrups. Here we haven't really had a very intense frost down in southern Maine, so there's still a lot of herbs in the garden. You can infuse simple syrups or spirits like vodka, gin, with herbs, and give little bottles of your infused spirits or simple syrups as gifts, tied with a little ribbon. You could do like a cranberry rosemary simple syrup or vodka, or even an herbal vinegar, and people can use that like in salad dressings or marinades. So we've got a lot of these great resources that we'll be sharing with you to hopefully spark your creative homemade gift giving ideas using local ingredients and these simple preserving methods. And you also want to just ensure that when you give these gifts that they are stored properly. So if you're canning something, make sure it's sealed before you hand it off. So that means that the button is pulled in and not clicked up, so there's no flex in the lid. And it's recommended to store your canning jars without the lids, without the screw bands. So once you've canned something, it's recommended to remove the screw band for storage. Now, when you give it as a gift, you want to include the screw band, but you might want to let the recipient know. You could make a cute little tag. I'm sure if you search on the internet, you'll find little rhymes about how to store your jars. Store it without the screw band, store it in a relatively cool place. And then once you open it, use it within 2 weeks to avoid food spoilage. So those would be nice things to communicate to the recipients of your gift. And it's also important then to label and date it. So I've got cranberry chutney made last October. So that lets us know that it's time to eat this jar because it's best used within a year for best quality. So if you want to make your own labels, you could, I just write right on the lid, you can see with a Sharpie, but you could make your own label, print it out on sticky paper and stick it on the lid. The jars do come, actually, I've been opening these boxes lately and not been seeing those little paper labels. Typically the jars come with little paper labels you can stick on the jar. But since the jars are reusable and the lids are not, I like to just put the label on the lid because then you just don't reuse the lid versus having to scrub the label off the canning jar so you can reuse it. We'll also share, Ball has a template on their website where you can create customized labels that then you could print and put on your jars. That'd be pretty fancy. All right, Lori, it's time for questions. Do you have any more questions for me?
I don't have any questions just yet, but I have a question for everyone in the audience. I would like to know if you all would share in the Q&A what you like to give and what you like to receive. Maybe brainstorm a few ideas that we haven't come up with in today's presentation. And I think that would be a fun thing for everyone to share.
If anyone's listening and wants to give me a homemade food gift, I love to receive candied citrus rind because that's a very intensive project and I have never done it myself because it looks like a lot of work, but I absolutely love them. And also one that's easy to do and I love to make and receive is that like saltine toffee where you just put saltines and then pour butter and sugar and chocolate and bake it and let it cool and then break it into pieces. So easy and so delicious.
Wendy has extracts in process right now, as well as herb infused oils.
It's a great idea. And I meant to bring up extracts. Yeah, that's something that we have time to make. So you could do I mean, Wendy, you can share what kind you have, but I was thinking just vanilla extract, like vanilla can be, a high quality vanilla is a very pricey ingredient. And so that would make a great gift. I once got, vanilla beans in bourbon, I think. And I was delighted. And there are some food safety risks associated with infusing oils. So we have a great fact sheet. So just check that out and make sure you're in line with what we recommend. They're putting fresh ingredients in oil and keeping it at room temperature does create the conditions for botulism to grow. So it's a rare risk, but also, bad consequence. So just check it out and make sure you're following the proper procedure there.
So Mary has a question that says, some of the lids now say they can be kept for 18 months. Do you agree with this?
Yes, we've seen advice they're the manufacturer, and so kind of defer to their advice around their product. This means that, I'm sorry. I was thinking about how long they last when you use them. So before you use them, sorry. So it's typically recommended to use up the jar lids that you have within a year, just to ensure that the sealing compound doesn't dry rot or anything. But you're saying once they're sealed, they're recommended for 18 months. So yes, the 1 year is for best quality. So if a recipe, you follow a proper recipe and it's canned properly and your jars are a little bit older, it's fine to enjoy the food up to 18 months. 2 years might be kind of pushing it. The quality just starts to decline, like the color, the flavor, the nutrient value, the longer it sits. So I think if 2 years go by and you don't eat it, it's like, okay, maybe you weren't as into that pickle recipe as you thought you would be. And you can shuffle those jars off to the compost and make room for new ones. But we recommend 1 year for best quality. And then beyond that, just try and use it within reason.
Debbie says that she makes strawberry jam and they decorate the jars with her granddaughters, and they use fabric under the screw band and also enclose a handmade recipe. And that is definitely a favorite.
Lovely.
Also, I think this is a classic, and for a reason. Someone else comments that they love jams and getting jams. And of course, strawberry rhubarb jam is mentioned specifically from another participant. Kathy says, I love chocolate covered strawberries, or any other fresh or dried fruit would also work. Wendy comments vanilla, cinnamon, and elderberry.
Oh, nice.
Oh, here's one. Yeah. Infused honey is a great gift to give with teas. From Emily. Anne mentions herb vinegar, mustard, chutney, and spice mixes. Lynn, I feel like I keep talking over you. I'm so sorry.
Okay.
I'm just
commenting on how I love all these. Suggestions.
And Lynn comments on flavored hot chocolate mixes and champagne vinegar after the holidays for those diet salad dressings. Valerie will be canning apple pie in a jar for gifts this year.
Ooh.
I will try to get on Valerie's gift list. Elizabeth makes blueberry cordial and cranberry cordial, and she says super very simple, just have to start early as it does need time for full flavor. Now I love
8 weeks until the holidays, so you got time to infuse projects that take a while. So if you want to make a limoncello or those vanilla extracts or cordials or something.
I appreciate every
in the forecast, so you could start this weekend.
Yeah. So I want to thank everybody for their comments. I'm not going to get to them all because we are at 12:44. So I went over a bit, but I was very excited about all those recipes. I'll turn it back to Lisa to close us out.
Thanks, Lori, and thank you everyone for sharing your favorite ideas for giving or receiving holiday gifts. We do have some information to share with you on our recommended resources, and you'll get all of these resource lists included in the follow-up email, including our directory of Maine farm products, so you can shop locally this holiday season. We'll share an email with resources and recipes from today's topic later on today. And that's going to wrap it up for us for the 2021 webinar series. We want to thank all of you so much for spending some of your year with us. And we hope you enjoy lots of homemade preserved foods this year as a result of everything you've learned. We want to thank you for joining us again and wish you all a happy holiday season. Bye now.
Thanks.